It was at that point, 25 years old, and I realized I was in pain and I didn't quite know how to deal with that pain. When it comes to healing and the way that healing is sometimes sold to us, we're like, how do I have time to heal? When do I have time to cry? When do I have time to let go? I want to talk about making healing more accessible in your day-to-day life. I had to say, get out of bed and live. And living was a big part of that healing for me. Hey ladies, I hope that you're all doing wonderful. If you are a newbie, welcome. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. It's lovely to see you all. I'm Shandice, and today we're going to be talking about healing and why living is such an important part of healing. So a lot of this conversation is going to be reflective and just me kind of sharing some of my story, but also giving you space to process some of your story. And we're going to do some writing prompts and just kind of take some time to breathe, release, and just prepare for the day ahead. So I love writing, and I would say that is my passion. That's like my thing. I'm an author. I published my first book in 2021. It's called Dear Purposeful Woman, Courageous Words for You and Me. And I've spent a lot of time over the years working with women through my community, Dear Purposeful Woman, which is currently kind of on pause right now, but I would do writing workshops. One thing that's always been important to me is creating space for women to just come together, and whether it be online or in person, to just release, renew, share stories, heal, just all of that. So I also want to create that space on my channel where we have reflections, journaling prompts, and we're able to just start a dialogue in the comment section. So today's topic, as I was saying, is about living and healing, and I just have so much to share on this topic. One thing I would say is through doing my writing workshops, it taught me so much in the sense that when women come together, when women share their stories, when women let go of shame and realize that so much of what we are embarrassed of, so much of what we hide is linked to another woman's breakthrough, like amazing things happen. But let's get back to the main topic of living being such an important part of healing. So something from my book. So I'm going to go to page 21 and I write, breakthroughs begin beneath the surface. Be willing to get on your hands and knees and dig for the unseen, for you cannot uproot what you are unaware of. When it comes to healing, like I feel as if in many ways healing has become like a buzzword. It's like everyone wants to heal, everyone wants to become the best versions of themselves, and that's an amazing thing for us to want to grow, for us to want to break free from our childhood traumas and to let go of the things that have held us back or paralyzed us in different areas of our lives. But one thing about healing is so much more than the commercialized version of healing. Like I think in many ways sometimes healing can feel so inaccessible because on top of healing we've got so much going on in our daily lives. We have work, we have raising our families, we have marriage, relationships, friendships, we have trying to make a living, we have trying to stay healthy. There's so many elements to our daily lives. When it comes to healing and the way that healing is sometimes sold to us, we're like, how do I have time to heal? When do I have time to cry? When do I have time to let go? And I want to talk about making healing more accessible in your day-to-day life so that you're not always feeling intimidated by the idea. From my experience, I feel as if like a point happens in life where you're just more self-aware of who you are, what you've been through, and how you're feeling. And I feel like for me, that happened when I got married. I got married at 25 going on to 26. I had just graduated with my master's degree and I was living in the US. Me and my husband had been like long distance. Me in the UK, him in the US for 3 years, I think. We met when I was 20. We were both 1920 and when we met. But that aside, then I came back to the US to do my master's and got engaged and married and everything. And I remember when I got married, I remember this feeling coming over me like a ton of bricks. And I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I have trauma. Oh my gosh, I have pain. I am hurt. My dad didn't come to my wedding. And I wish I could give you a reason as to why he didn't come. There was like no problems or nothing. But he wasn't at my wedding. And to this day, it breaks my heart. And I think it will always break my heart. And I have come to terms with that. So even though I'm getting teary-eyed, I have made peace with it. I love my dad. I have a decent relationship with my dad. There's no bad blood. But that will always be something that just breaks my heart when I think about it. But it was at that point, 25 years old, and I realized I was in pain. And I didn't quite know how to deal with that pain. So I started writing more, writing down my thoughts. And that's when I started Dare Purposeful Woman, which is my community. Like I think I already said this, like it's kind of been on pause because I'm kind of like redefining what Dare Purposeful Woman even means to me right now. And that's like how I was doing my workshops and everything was through Dare Purposeful Woman. But it was at that point, 25 years old, that I was just like, I don't know how to handle this. And I remember putting so much pressure on myself to have to do this, do that, like I have to heal, like I have to get over this, or I'm never gonna become who God created me to be. And I felt so broken because my dad not coming to my wedding was only one element of everything else that kind of opened up for me. Like I started thinking about childhood or things that I experienced, or I was able to kind of think back to things that have hurt me over the years. It was as if this intense level of self-awareness just came over me that I had never experienced before. And I didn't know how to handle it. And looking back in hindsight, like I wish I could just go back and say to myself, Shandice, please darling, take one day at a time. You don't have to figure this all out today. You're still growing, you're still learning. There's so much more to this life of yours. Little did I know those painful experiences were going to be the catalyst for me doing my workshops with women, experiencing women heal and experience deep breakthroughs right in front of my eyes. And then I sometimes wonder if I hadn't experienced the pain that I had along my journey, would I have been able to even do the work that I was doing at that time? So the first thing I want to say to you is that wherever you are in your healing journey, whether you are experiencing deep grief because of something that's happened, you might be experiencing sorrow, you might be experiencing joy and sorrow at the same time. And that's one of the most hardest things to reconcile. Like, why am I in a season of celebration where I'm so grateful for where I am and what I have, but then I'm also mourning what I've lost? Wherever you are in your journey and whatever you might be going through, I think there just has to be a level of self-compassion and realizing that you really don't have to have it all figured out. But back to living and healing. So back then, I was a wreck. And I just always felt broken. I always felt like I wasn't good enough because I'm having to heal from this in order to move forward. And I'm not saying that there aren't certain things that we might have to heal from in order to experience the fullness of something else, right? For example, if you have a lot of relationship trauma and you're about to get married, I mean, yes, therapy would be a good idea, making sure you're working through those things. But there's also an understanding that even having those therapy sessions, doing all the inner work in the world doesn't mean that you won't have to continue doing work once you're married. So it's just understanding it's like the healing journey doesn't necessarily end. And because of that, it can get taxing if we always feel as if every single day we have to be doing this big inner work project in order to be worthy of living an amazing life or creating the life of our dreams. You see what I'm saying? So then the question becomes, how do we incorporate healing into our daily lives? And I want to share with you a few things that have helped me. I've probably missed like a million chapters in between from when I was 25 to where I am now at 33, but I'm so grateful for the journey. But I want to keep this video a little on the lighter side because I want to kind of ease my way into some of the deeper conversations. Maybe this will be a series. You guys can let me know if you're actually interested in me digging more deeper into this topic of healing and living. But I wrote down some notes. So the first thing I said was self-awareness, and linking back to what I said in my book, right? Breakthroughs begin beneath the surface. Be willing to get on your hands and knees to dig for the unseen, for you cannot uproot what you are unaware of. And I do believe that self-awareness is such an important piece. And self-awareness can be something that we run from, because when we have to face the truth can be painful. It can feel painful. And I do see how many of the times we can kind of like try to run away from what's really going on inside of us. But one thing that I always say is, whatever you run away from, you will run back into. And I have seen this happen time and time again. Believe me when I say this, whatever you run away from, you will run right back into. So it's so important that we face the challenges that are in front of us rather than run away from them, because at some point we're going to find ourselves right back where we started. For example, if you're afraid of being alone because of maybe you have abandonment issues from when you were a child or something happened there, and because you're afraid of being alone, you settle for a relationship that you know is no good for you because you don't want to be alone and you haven't dealt with that issue. Because you have chosen a bad partner, you may end up alone anyway. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's so important that we are aware of our triggers. We're aware of those pain points, the things that are in our lives where it's like, this is something that I need to work on. But realizing that there are so many ways that you can work on it daily, rather than just thinking, okay, I only need to do therapy, I only need to journal. Because what ends up happening is we might have been really good at writing everything down and releasing it, but it doesn't mean that we've automatically picked up good habits to then move forward and make better decisions. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's just making sure that we are doing multiple things and they're working together, embracing the ebb and flow of healing. And self-awareness, it can be a daunting feeling, like I was saying, because it's like you start thinking, there's so much going on within me, how do I deal with this all? And you can almost be filled with so much anxiety. And I feel as if that's how I was at 25. It was just like, I'm in so much pain. How am I going to heal from this? How am I going to heal from the feeling of disappointment? And that's always been a pain point for me. Being afraid of being disappointed. And because I was always afraid of being disappointed, it kind of delayed some things in my life. So for example, with me writing my first book, I always had this fear of like, what if my book is rubbish? Like, what if no one buys it? Like, what if I get bad reviews? There was just this feeling at the back of my mind, like, I can't handle any more heartbreak. I can't handle any more disappointment. So I would go round and round in circles, never finishing the first draft or writing some and then like being afraid of sharing it, just not wanting to feel rejected, not wanting to feel disappointed. And I had to work through that. And the only way I could work through that was through self-awareness. And that's where the living part comes in. Because how do you really work through the fear of rejection and disappointment, other than, of course, you do the inner work. Of course, you get the emotions out. Of course, you do therapy. Of course, you write things down. But you also have to walk into situations that you have to face those fears head on. And the only way to do that is to live your life. Literally. That means applying for the job, even though you may not get it. That means writing that blog post, even if you're afraid that no one's going to read it. Like, it's about doing the things that scare you so that you can prove your fears wrong. There's something just so beautiful about being able to actively heal. For me, when I did publish my first book, something happened within me. It was almost like this deep revelation of where I felt as if I, in many ways, had a veil lifted from my eyes, because I had told myself so many lies over the years as to why I couldn't do this. Even though I knew it was such a special part of my purpose here on earth to write and to encourage women through my words, to inspire women through my words, I've always known, for as long as I can remember, like from my teens, that writing was such an important part of my purpose here on earth. And for the first time, I felt like I said yes. I said yes with every single part of me, not knowing what that outcome would be. And I remember one day checking my emails, and this young lady emailed me, and she was like, "You don't know how much I needed this book." She was telling me how she's been suicidal, how she's had suicide attempts. And she was like, "This book reminded me that I'm here for a purpose." And I remember crying my eyes out. And I said to myself, the power of one. If that book was just for one person, if it saved one person, it did what it was supposed to do. It might not be a New York's best time seller. The second one might be, the fifth one might be, or maybe none of them will be. But if I'm helping people, that's really all that matters. And I got to a point that it was kind of just like this beautiful reminder for me of, you are walking in purpose every single day by doing the things that are meaningful to you, by connecting deeper with God, by knowing who you are, and not allowing all these stories that were really born from pain, not allowing those stories to dictate my life. So I would definitely say that self-awareness plays such an important part in healing, because it really does allow us to make decisions about how we want to live each day. If you know that you have often been in a space that you felt restricted, or you felt as if you couldn't be your true self when you were younger, maybe going for a 10-minute walk every day is a reminder that you are free. Maybe that will give you a sense of freedom. Maybe there's something that you can do for yourself every single day that just reinforces your healing, that just reminds you that everything's going to be okay. In many ways, you are just comforting the little girl within and reminding her, like, you're okay, you're going to be okay. But it really does start with self-awareness. So like, one thing I would say is a writing prompt that you can do to just start. So I actually done a journaling video. I'm going to link it below, where I was pretty much just like asking you to ask yourself, how are you really feeling? And you can even change that to, what's going on inside? What is causing you pain right now? Those are questions that you can ask yourself, and list it down. Whatever might be upsetting you, write it down. Because if there's something bothering you, if there's a weight within you, you have to address it. Just so important that we start with self-awareness. And then I would go on to release. So like, moving on from our saying, self-awareness, release, finding those ways that you can do little things to just release that burden day by day. One thing, like I always say, is that joy and sorrow can hold hands. And I learned that when my grandma passed away. It was 2020, it was the start of the pandemic. And what was so painful for me was, it was like a new chapter for my life, because I had quit my job and I had now gone into like full-time working for myself, freelancing. I'm working with small businesses. Besides my writing and my work with women, I am a marketer. Like, I have worked in a marketing field for technically since I was 18. Marketing and like TV production, 16 since like TV production. I remember just seeing my business take off, and then it get into June to find out that my grandma was in hospital, and that having to get on a plane to go to London because I live in the US. And I will never forget that flight, not knowing if I was going to get to London and her not be alive. And I'm so grateful that I got to see her. I think it was twice I got to see her. The first time she was responsive because she was squeezing my hand and a tear rolled down her cheek. The second time she wasn't really responsive. And I remember feeling like I was going to lose a big part of myself because she was my last living grandma. I love my grandma. All my grandparents were born and raised in Jamaica, and they came to the UK in the 60s. And there's so much history there. I'm just grateful for my grandparents. And when she passed away, I just felt like so much history was being lost. And then I remember that history lives in me, and that she's not physically here, but what she left behind is still in me. But I had to reconcile with the pain of losing her. It still hurts a lot. I mean, it's still fresh. It's only been 3 years, but I was in a really dark place, But yet my business was thriving. I was making more money than I had ever made. I had the freedom to go to London for 3-4 months. I was in London and I could work from London. That was the biggest blessing that I could have ever asked for, and I'm forever grateful for that. And I was just so grateful for how everything kind of came together in that sense. But at the same time, I was just in so much pain. And I remember coming back to the US and being in a really dark place for at least 3 to 6 months, until one day I remember being in bed and I said, Shandice, get out of bed. Get out of bed and live your life. Because your grandma lived such a full life. She passed away at 88 years old. And I had to say, get out of bed and live. And living was a big part of that healing for me. I remember like me and my husband would like go on little trips and do things, and I felt as if it was just renewing my spirit, just being able to live and be present. And there's another part in my book that like I remember feeling a little down some months ago and reading it, and I needed it more than anything. And it says, there will be days where you don't feel strong enough to get out of bed in the morning. As you attempt to remove the covers from your body, the weight of your inner battles will seduce you into covering your head, closing your eyes, and sweetly snuggling up to your sorrows. In those moments when life feels too much to bear, your eyelids struggle to reopen, and your limbs feel paralyzed by the thought of what lies ahead. Open your mouth instead. Declare with all your heart and soul that this is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. You are a child of the Most High God, and your bed will not steal any more of your days. So rise and shine, dear purposeful woman. It's time to wake up and go live the life you were created to live. I read those words and I instantly was like refreshed, and I was just like, hey, that's why the book is called Courageous Words for You and Me, because these words are for me too, like for real. I still remember that day. I was just like, get out of bed and live your life. And I also want to say the same thing to you. Get out of bed and live your life. If you are having more bad days than good days, like I know it's hard, and I know that sometimes it's like you do feel paralyzed. Some days you are reminded of the losses more than you're reminded of the wins. But if you just go outside and smell the fresh air and go for that walk, or go to that coffee shop and read a book, or sit and get your favorite drink and just take in the moment, there's so much beauty in being present in our day-to-day lives. There's so much beauty in revisualizing what healing looks like for us. And it being a natural part of our lives, it being something that we have to go through. To love deeply is to hurt deeply. And I've come to that realization. The reason why I was in so much pain that my dad wasn't at my wedding, because I love my dad so deeply. The reason I was in so much pain that my grandma passed away, because I loved my grandma so deeply. To love deeply is to experience pain deeply. And that's something that we're just going to have to come to terms with. And the only way to negate that is to live a life where you are numb. And the question is, if you're living a life that you are numb, are you actually living? And I made a decision that I'm choosing to live and to feel rather than to be numb to avoid feeling the pain. So when it comes to releasing, it's just important that we understand that we can release in our day-to-day lives. A few things that I've been doing for myself that has been so helpful with just releasing some of the pain or the tension, or like whenever I'm feeling down, I've been making myself breakfast every morning, making myself a delicious breakfast, and I've even been sharing videos on it. That's been bringing me joy. That's a part of my healing, reminding myself that my body is important, that I have to fill my body with life, that I have to fill this house of mine. This is the place that houses my spirit. So I have to be mindful about what I feed it. That's a part of me reminding myself that I'm not going to give up on myself, right? So it's just choosing those things in your day-to-day lives where you are healing yourself through living deeply. So I think that's also like a really good prompt where you can ask yourself, how can I heal in my day-to-day life through living? What are some things that you can do in your day-to-day life that are going to contribute to your healing, but it's literally you just living, you living loud, you living courageously, you just living with everything intentionally. So just ask yourself that question, because I think that's such a powerful journaling prompt. And if you don't want to write the answers down, you can even speak them into like a voice recorder. I love using my voice notes on my phone. Sometimes I just note things down, and then weeks later I would like go back to those notes and just listen to them. And something I will say is that in that process of releasing and also giving yourself space, because you never really know what's going to come out when you're releasing and when you're letting things go. And you also have to be aware of the things you might lose in that process. By you getting better, by you healing, you're also shedding, which means you might have to let go of more things. It's crazy. It's like a cycle, because it's like you have to shed and then you're going to be mourning what you let go. So that's why I'm just like, yo, like, healing is forever. And because of that, we just have to keep moving, right? So in that process, be compassionate with yourself and realize that you're not always going to make the best decisions. There has to be space. There has to be space to learn, to grow, to just kind of like continue to develop as the days go by. So the last thing is I'm going to end with renewal. Whenever you let go of something that I truly believe is that whatever we shed, whatever we let go of when it comes to us really healing, growing, and just becoming the best versions of ourselves, whatever we cut away from our lives, when we are aligned and we listen to what God is speaking to us, and when we let go of the things that are holding us back, I believe that God replaces them. And it doesn't mean that He replaces them with what we had. I think He replaces them with what we need. So I've learned to find so much joy in renewal, because I never really know what it's going to look like, and understanding that it's going to look different in every season of my life. So like lately, think about friendships and how my friendships have changed over the years, and that's a painful experience of letting go of friendships that you thought were going to last a lifetime. That's a difficult feeling to reconcile with, and one that I'm still working through. And that's actually a topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about journaling through the heartache of a friendship breakup, because journaling has really been such an important part of that process to me, along with living and appreciating the friends that I still have in my life. But I definitely want to touch on that in another video. But renewal is going to surprise us. We don't know what it's going to look like, but we have to make space for new life. We have to make space for what God is doing in our lives. And we have to make space for who we are evolving into. So I'm going to end on that note. And I really hope that this video served as just like a hug, more than anything, just like a hug and a reminder that you are not alone in whatever stage of your healing journey that you are. And remember, the stages repeat. It goes round and round and round. It's a life, like it's a cycle of life. Sometimes we're going through multiple things at once, right? But I really just hope that this video was a hug and it was a reminder that you can live and you can heal. You don't have to choose one. You can have both. So I'd love to know one way you plan on living this week. Like, what are you going to do to live more this week? I would love to know that. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, ladies, and I will see you in my next one. Take care.